It was Monday, January 5th, 1998. Quebecers were going back to school and work after the holidays. It wasn't a very nice day. It was that rain of little ice pellets that sting the skin and then pile up like granulated sugar on the street. The forecast for that night and for the next day, Tuesday, January 6th, was for freezing rain. But that forecast didn't say 4 days of freezing rain. It didn't say the ice storm of the century that's going to turn your lives upside down. But that's what we got. This is a look back at those 3 weeks in January when the triangle of darkness descended on the South Shore and when the ring of power around Montreal broke down.
Too much ice. The ice is terrible all over the place.
There's a lot of ice. A lot of ice.
I wait for the sprinkler.
Bronstetter, this is Daybreak on CBC Radio 1940 in Montreal. If you do not have to go out, do not. Unless it is absolutely necessary, stay home. Closed today. Montreal Catholic School Commission, closed. Baldwin-Cartier, closed. Lakeshore School Board, closed.
You know, it's going to go down in history as the ice storm of '98. It's bad, and it is not over. Hundreds of thousands of people in Montreal and across Quebec are still without electricity right now. Things aren't going to get better fast either. More freezing rain said to be on the way.
Almost 15,000 trees in Montreal are broken or down. Dozens of streets are closed. Power lines ripped to the ground. Homes and cars damaged.
As I walked up, I said, oh, lucky me, the back windshield has no ice on it, and I got a little closer to find out that I didn't have a back windshield. I don't have much of a front windshield.
Towering trees were covered in a thick layer of ice. Beautiful to behold, but dangerous below, as branches snapped under the weight and littered the ground around them.
The worst places, the worst neighborhood are definitely NDG, Maisonneuve, and Rosemont neighborhood.
The city tries to clean up the mess. Mother Nature keeps making the mess bigger.
The wind's picking up, the trees keep coming down, and just very hectic with no power and people asking us what we can do for heat for them.
Then the real power of the storm hits during the afternoon.
So much ice fell that 8 high-voltage power lines crumbled like toothpicks. Their cables strewn across a busy highway near Drummondville. Hydro workers have never seen it so bad.
Darren Solomon, our reporter, is outside right now to fill us in with some more information. Darren, what's the latest Hydro says about how many customers are without power?
Well, Dennis, as we mentioned earlier, we're talking about, in all of Quebec, 755,000 homes without electricity. In Montreal, on the island, we're talking about nearly 250,000 homes.
Does Hydro have any new estimate about when people will be getting their power back?
Well, we have nothing new so far. They still say it could take about 3 or 4 days.
Late that afternoon, the city opens 2 shelters for people who have no power and need help.
This community center in the Côte-des-Neiges area opened its doors, and people trickled in.
We tried to actually stay the night in our place, but then
The kids got very cold, and well, we decided we had to come where there was light and warmth.
All night, hydro crews do their best to get power on again. But extra shifts and overtime aren't enough to tackle what's shaping up to be the storm of the century.
We haven't seen anything remotely like this since about 1961. In about February of 1961, we got about 50 millimeters worth of ice coming down on us. Today, pretty close. We're getting there. We have about 18 millimeters of ice on the ground, on the cars, on the trees. And we have a bit of a break on its way for this evening and overnight. But another low is moving in to take its place. So more freezing rain on the way for tomorrow.
This is day 2 of the ice storm crisis in Montreal. The freezing rain has started again. There are still 500,000 homes in the southern part of Montreal, of Quebec, that do not have electricity.
Command Central at Hydro-Quebec. Workers have been dispatching crews around the clock, trying to deal with one of the biggest blackouts in Quebec history, and hundreds of calls coming in.
It's not only the calls, it's the ice. The branches are falling all over the place. They're breaking the wires. We're putting them back up. 2 hours after the distribution line, our alarms go off, and it just went down again.
It's a nerve-wracking job. People here are working 16-hour shifts, coordinating more than 2,000 workers on the road.
This is the area we patrol right now, and all the green spot is the address where branches touch the wire. There's a lot of green.
This team in Outremont has been at it since 4 o'clock this morning. Thomas Dugas has been working for Hydro for 20 years.
This is the worst, I think, that we have. The ice is really thick.
Work is slow, hard, frustrating, dangerous.
Could take about from 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 6 hours, if the wires are not broken for one street.
Hydro wasn't the only outfit on the road. The city's crews were scrambling to stay on top of the mess.
City of Montreal workers are working around the clock cleaning up frozen mounds of ice, and they'll also work all night picking up branches. More than 15,000 have fallen, but they can't say if they'll be finished when the next ice storm hits. We don't know, he says. We're working at maximum capacity now.
Everyone told Montrealers to keep off the streets. More shelters open for people without electricity.
Do you want a soup, ma'am? Yes, please. Somebody will take it. Go sit down and we'll take it to her.
Where were you when the lights went out, Edward?
I was just getting up. I was getting ready to go to work, and that's when it happened. It seemed like it just looked outside, and it seemed like a disaster outside.
Now that was yesterday morning.
Yes.
You only showed up at the shelter here today. What was the day like at home yesterday?
Well, I was at work, but my wife had a hard time at home. It was just getting progressively more and more cold, and we tried to tough it out last night, and just this morning was just too much. We just woke up, and it was time to do something about it.
It's no heating, it's cold, it's no coffee, it's miserable. I'm going downtown.
Even without power, some families really want to stay at home. They won't give up. And Jill Oviatt has their story.
Most people in this neighborhood are heading to warmer territory. Barely a car in sight on this street. But one family remains, determined to tough it out.
Can I like the other ones? We basically didn't really have a place to stay because most of my family members and my friends are living in the area. So they're all out of power. So you kind of have to cope with the cold. Okay, I had my comforter, I had a wool blanket, I had this comforter, and I had another one, and it was cold.
Ground wire became live by the feed from the hydro pole, and that's what started the fire.
But staying home proved to be dangerous for some.
The owner was using his fireplace constantly since his power went out. Flames finally crept through the outer layers of the fireplace, and the wall caught fire.
With the old houses, with these kinds of chimney not well done, it happens a lot. And especially with this weather now.
After an emergency cabinet meeting in Quebec, the Premier issued a warning.
I think that we must tell the population that they should not hesitate to leave home if they feel like it.
That night, Montrealers were doing just what the Premier asked them to do.
The Bélangers brought their 4 children here because they have nowhere else to go.
We slept around the fire yesterday, but today it's too cold. It's about 10 degrees in the house.
Most of those who'll be spending the night are senior citizens, like Françoise Boutin.
We've climbed 7 stories a foot today, and I thought that this was cold enough and stairs enough. So now we're taking it easy and in a luxury way here.
And the weather wasn't about to get any better.
Bad news, Dennis. The second part of this ice storm is going to be more vicious than yesterday's for 2 simple reasons. We're going to see, in some cases, twice as much ice, and winds, which weren't a factor yesterday, will be a factor tonight into tomorrow. We're expecting winds to pick up to as high as 40 kilometers an hour, with gusts as strong as 60 kilometers.
Day 3 of Quebec's ice storm crisis. More than 1 million households and businesses across southwestern Quebec mainly are now without power, and in many cases heat. The big hit today is on the south shore from Chateauguay and Beauharnois all the way to Boucherville down to Granby. 560,000 plus hydro customers out. Trying to get a control of this situation has been a losing battle all day for Hydro-Quebec and their reinforcements. The federal government sent in hundreds of Canadian Forces personnel to help out, but nobody can stop this ice storm. The freezing rain won't let up. The city is covered in a 1-inch coat of ice.
So far, we've got about 28 millimeters worth of freezing precipitation. Basically, what that adds up to is, if you look at a car, if you look at a tree, you've got about 1.5 inch thick layer of ice on there.
Everywhere, trees are breaking, power lines are falling. More and more people are going into the dark. Hydro crews are overwhelmed. I guess it goes without saying that Hydro-Quebec's never seen anything like this.
Yes, it goes without saying. We hope never to see it again either.
What kind of deadline are you holding out for people when things might come back to semblance of normal?
Well, I think it would be realistic not to expect power for a few more days. Some people will be out of power until next week.
And to help get the power back on, Hydro is calling in reinforcements from the United States.
Hi. How you doing? Good.
I've never seen like this here. So you could be walking and just crashes. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I've never seen it this bad.
Going into the fourth day, more and more people give up and head for the shelters.
Very hard. We like our own beds and it's warm there, but right now there's nothing there. I don't know what we're going to go home to because everything is froze up there.
Oh, thank you very much.
You want to go in the chair or you want to go to the one here?
Yeah, go in fine.
The Aquatic Centre in Pointe Claire will be home to more than 200 people tonight. Residents have to sign up to secure a bed. The shelter is providing food, even entertainment for the kids. It's operating at full capacity, and city officials fear the situation will only get worse.
The situation with power outages on the West Island is changing by the hour, forcing some shelters to close. So if you need a place to stay, call your city hall first and find out what's available.
The story is we are stuck with this freezing rain and these ice pellets for at least another 24 hours.
The freezing rain poured down again all night long. When Quebecers woke up Friday morning, more of them were without electricity than ever, and things were about to get worse. Day 4, the worst day yet.
I'm gonna cry, I think. I'm very tired.
By late tonight, millions of Quebecers will be out of power. And this is the day downtown went dark.
Power is still coming in, but we do not have any backup anymore, so we are in a fragile situation at this moment.
More fragile than we knew. A few days later, the Premier would admit we came close to disaster that Friday. 5 lines supply power to Montreal. Only one was still working.
By the end of the morning, Quebec's great ice storm took an apocalyptic twist. The skies rumbling as an onslaught of ice pellets continued to wreak havoc with roads and power lines. An excess of ice forced authorities to shut down the Victoria Bridge. Fallen power lines blocked access and compromised safety on roads and highways.
Équivalent eau de précipitation.
While Hydro-Quebec desperately tried to calm fears at this press conference, the power went out. The reality is, by the end of the day, 3 million Quebecers were still in the dark. Power outages even spread to areas like Westmount, places that had been spared up till now.
The Rougemont area is an icy wasteland. Many roads are closed, many others covered by fallen power lines. The ice is relentless. It covers everything, including the many high-voltage lines that have fallen around here. It's hard to imagine just how much ice they got here around Rougemont. Take a look at this bush. Look at the thickness of ice compared to my hand. It's quite amazing.
The city of Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu is trapped in ice, powerless for 4 days now, damage everywhere. People who've been staying at emergency shelters aren't getting much sleep. They wait in hour-long lineups for food. Many of them wonder how much longer they can last.
I think we're going to call the hotel and we're going to stay at the hotel. We'd rather stay here for them because there's children they can play with. But I can't wash. This is the hardest thing. I want to wash. I don't smell bad. I'm used to that. It's hard for everybody. It's because I'm tired.
The 2 emergency shelters here are already full, and people just keep showing up. The town needs help.
I can't even get 150 blankets from the Canadian Army because they're still talking with Quebec and Ottawa on who's going to be the one who's going to give me these 150. Meanwhile, my people are freezing here.
Getting any supplies to the South Shore was difficult. Late in the afternoon, the bridges closed. Ice was falling from the superstructures. For the first time in 30 years, all the metro lines stopped working. And at some Montreal hospitals, the power went out. The staff scrambled.
As of noontime, we did have to cancel all elective surgeries because of shortage of blood declared by the Red Cross, and also because we were expecting potentially some transfer of acute cases from other institutions in the island.
The city may be at a standstill, but the military is here to help get things moving again. Military personnel concentrated much of their effort in Saint-Hyacinthe today. They followed public work crews to the hardest-hit areas. While some soldiers diverted traffic, others worked on cutting branches laden with ice.
As you can see on this route here, a lot of the branches that are heavy with ice, it's dangerous for them to pass. While we're here waiting to cut these, some branches here had fallen. It's our job to clear those.
With little relief in sight and homes getting colder, shelters are getting crowded and new ones are opening up.
I hope the situation will improve tomorrow and Sunday, but it's really a desolation all over the city. The trees, there's 20,000 trees. When I talk to you, I hear some of the branches falling down here around the city hall. So it's really a terrible condition. We never see that. It's an ecological disaster for Montreal.
One of the worst places to be in Canada today was downtown Montreal. Till now, it had been almost untouched by the catastrophic blackouts, but tonight, it too was hit. All lines of the Montreal Metro closed. In the streets, chaos.
I figured it's a total blackout because if downtown has no light, there's probably none at all in my area.
Tonight, Montreal is a city marked by great swaths of darkness with the odd island of light. At latest count, 1.3 million hydro customers are without power.
After the big freeze, the big thaw. Ahead, the long process of recovery and cleaning up. This window of decent weather may be very small. It's supposed to get colder and colder over the next few days. So you can imagine what went on here today, a huge effort to make the most of this opportunity, to get ice off bridges, to clear debris off the streets, most of all to restore power to the city of Montreal.
This was an uneasy calm after the storm. Downtown Montreal, much of it still without power, was turned into a massive pedestrian mall. Dozens of streets were closed, too dangerous to pass. Though the storm was over, ice, huge chunks of it, continued to rain down from above. Despite the break in the weather, life has not returned to normal, far from it. Montrealers were told not to drink the tap water after a blackout at a pumping station. That prompted a rush on bottled water. This store was cleaned out. Veterinarian Marcel Ballon needed water for him and his pets.
No, the pier is for me, and the club soda is for the pets.
The water's over.
Well, they say we can't use it. I don't know where I am, if I'm allowed to, but I figure I don't want to take any chance.
Even one of the proudest symbols of the city, hockey's Montreal Canadiens, couldn't escape the effects of the storm. Their game against New York tonight was postponed.
On the first day of relief from the onslaught of ice pellets, there was still shell shock from the ravages of the ice war.
This looks like worse than any hurricane I've ever seen. I mean, the West Island, I thought where we are was pretty bad, but this is incredible. This is devastation.
I was in Winnipeg yesterday. It's the first time in my life I wish I stayed in Winnipeg.
With so many trees so badly mutilated, many tried to do their best to save what was left of them.
This is an occasion, the only occasion we're going to get probably for a long time, to take that ice off. If you don't take it off today in the warm weather, it's going to freeze again. And the trees are going to be badly damaged.
Things weren't much better inside. The taps might be running again, but the water has to be boiled before drinking. And try doing that when the plugs don't work. So I guess you can't use that.
No.
The scope of this disaster is hard to take in, especially in the area that took the biggest hit, Montreal's South Shore. No one has escaped. Nearly every household, every business is blacked out in a string of cities and towns that have become known as the Triangle of Darkness.
You can see what happened right here. Even small wires became like thick, heavy cables of ice. In some of the areas around here, which is just south of Montreal, the whole distribution system has collapsed, and it could take weeks to get it back to normal. In fact, Hydro reported today that about 100 heavy pylons like these have fallen in this area. It also reported that about 40% of its distribution system here must be rebuilt. And to make matters worse, in other towns nearby, there's flooding. In another area, other victims of the crisis. Farmers cannot preserve milk anymore, so it is literally down the drain. It is in this so-called Triangle of Darkness that Premier Lucien Bouchard came to visit today. The shelter he saw has been crowded for days, and he cannot tell them when they can go home.
But until now, we have a tremendous support from the population, patience, solidarity. Now patience will be the key word because it might take a few days more.
People's patience would be sorely tested. The thaw was only a brief respite. The weather is turning colder, a lot colder. Millions of Quebecers still have no power, some for 5 days. Houses and apartments are becoming too cold to live in. More people turn to friends, relatives, and shelters. Nerves are beginning to fray.
Tonight, the crisis deepens. It's day 6. Millions are still without power, and now the temperature is dropping. The Premier of Quebec pleads with people to take shelter.
C'est un appel que je lance immédiatement.
But in the shelters, misery.
C'est l'enfer.
I hope we'll be out of here very soon.
Montreal spent another night in darkness as Hydro-Quebec's promise to restore power was as empty as the city's streets. And as the cold weather sweeps in, so do increasing fears for the welfare of hundreds of thousands of people.
It's kind of long. It's getting to be on our nerves. It's getting to really, the first days wasn't so bad because, we thought, well, just a couple of days, it's not so bad, but now it's getting to be tiresome, nerve-wracking.
It's also getting to be dangerous. Hypothermia is now a concern. The seniors' home was evacuated after people here spent 2 days without heat. Shelters are being set up all around the city as people leave their homes in search of heat and help. Montreal's convention center is now an evacuation center, but it can't shelter people from the mounting strain.
C'est vraiment difficile. C'est très pénible.
It's so difficult, so painful, she says. I'm just trying to hold on.
And hospitals are feeling the strain. They're working on limited power, and they're also shelters for the most vulnerable. Several ask retired staff to come back and help.
It's hard to say what we're going to need, how many there's going to be, but we are not getting a word that it's letting up, and not if you see the people that are coming in now.
The Quebec cabinet met for hours in the afternoon. That evening, Lucien Bouchard asked people to seek shelter and asked people with power to take in their friends and neighbors. The government was also setting up a 1-800 number to help people find places to stay. On the South Shore, this was the day tempers flared. In Saint-Jean, little relief is in sight. It's cold, and the power will be off for at least another week. People are living in crowded shelters.
They sleep in a gymnasium. The ventilation system is out. The air is humid, stale.
Some people have not washed for 3, 4, 5 days. They can't wash. There's no place to wash.
Guy Meunier and his family are about to spend their 6th night here.
I feel bad about it. I wish I'd be home. I wish, I'd give something better for my kids. But I can't. I just feel like I can't do nothing more.
some people are fed up.
Plus capable. C'est l'enfer. La nuit, on peut même pas changer bébé de couche, on peut même pas leur donner du lait, on peut rien faire, on peut même pas respirer, on n'est plus capable.
Like the other night, there was a lady who got very frustrated and she hit her child. She kept hitting on her child, so we stopped her from doing it and we sent her to bed and we took her child and started taking care of it for her. After she got her rest that she needed, it was okay.
Bedtime.
We're just trying to get everybody in right now. Try to get them all settled down so everybody can get a good night's sleep.
But sleeping isn't easy.
We hear snoring and all that stuff, and babies crying. I bought myself some earplugs, so I don't hear it.
I sleep about 4 hours a day.
At midnight, it's lights out. The lucky ones will get a few hours sleep. Everyone hopes tomorrow brings something better, but tomorrow is a long way off.
When tomorrow comes, downtown Montreal will be closed, and many Quebecers will be facing another week without electricity.
Oh, great.
Hi, I'm home. I have power.
Oh, I feel really great to be home. Piano, I don't see any.
Finally, progress. Emerging from darkness, the lights are coming back on. But thousands of people are still in shelters, and more than 1 million are still without power.
After what was quite literally the darkest weekend in Montreal's modern history, at last there was light. By daybreak, power was back in the downtown core. Regular business was not.
Montrealers answered the appeal to stay out of the city to ease the demand for power and help Hydro-Quebec rebuild its shattered network. Despite efforts to repair and rebuild the network, Hydro says it's still vulnerable, still susceptible to blackouts. Hydro chairman André Caillé pleaded with those who have power to reduce their consumption, and he said they should expect temporary blackouts today as power is shared from sector to sector.
Close to 100,000 homes and businesses in Montreal are still without power a week after the ice storm hit. It's Monday night, and one of those areas is NDG neighborhood in West End, Montreal. Our Bob Babinski has been at the shelter there at Loyola High School, and he joins us there from there now with his guest. Bob?
As we speak, the emergency generator is just gone, and that's where you hear all the people moaning in the background. I guess this has been happening on and off since yesterday at 3.
Well, it went off at 3, and the power went off at 3, and they got the generator in, and they did provide enough heat for the night, although we didn't have light.
And it's getting colder. After a week of no electricity, police and firefighters are going door to door, ordering people out of their homes.
They don't want to leave. They want to stay there. They are hoping that the electricity will come back every hour, so they take chances.
Is ready to go?
We're getting booted out. We've got no heat, and now they've shut the water off and stuff, which I understand. It's been long enough, and it's getting too cold for the old people.
Although this is generally a positive day in Montreal, on the South Shore there's little relief.
This crew is one of about 10 working in the area of Saint-Hyacinthe, a city with no power for a week. The men are working from 12 to 18 hours a day. The pylons are taking shape quickly. Cable lies waiting to be strung, but it takes time. The lines here will not be up, the foreman says, before next week.
But this storm is more than just freezing rain and downed power lines. It's also people coming together to help. Neighbors helping neighbors. People volunteering for countless hours in shelters. And the kindness of strangers. Firewood and other supplies are pouring in from other parts of Quebec, Canada, and the United States.
I'm going to ease up a little bit. We're coming out of Richmond, Virginia, and we're bringing the folding cots, the beds and the tents for the people to sleep in. My dispatcher called me Saturday night about 11:30. He said, well, we got an emergency. We got people up there in Canada that's sleeping outside and needs beds. And I told him, I said, well, I'll be in.
OK, numéro de téléphone, si t'es perdu, t'appelles, puis t'essaies de faire.
Ça, c'est l'ordre dans lequel il faut qu'il soit fait. Longueuil, there's 1,000. Saint-Bruno, 300. 1,600 of them. Of beds. Long day. That's it. It's been a long day.
It is a war zone. Trust me, it's a war zone.
On-the-spot players doing what they do best, improv madness, a little laugh therapy to lighten things up.
This kind of thing really reminds us why we got into comedy in the first place, which is it makes people forget their troubles.
Considering the time that we're all facing right now, it's been very stressful for our family and for a lot of people around here, so it's definitely very uplifting.
It's tremendous, it's wonderful bubblegum. I've got a piece right here in my hand.
It's pressure off entertaining the kids for a night. It's also warming up the atmosphere.
This shows you that people care, you know? They really do care. And it's nice here. Yeah. I never know I would feel so at home.
Joyce asked me to bring you some hot coffee and some milk.
It's about the time, that something nice happens, and Joyce came, and it's just wonderful.
A fireplace at the Lapka family wasn't doing the trick, so Victor Smirnoff stepped in with his generator and some hot coffee.
For the kids.
And while Victor heats up the neighborhood, his wife Joyce feeds the neighborhood kids.
They're still doing their orders. 3 neighbors that come regularly, and this is the first big lunch that we've had with all the kids.
Joyce and Victor make staying warm a whole lot easier. Their kindness giving their neighbors finally some heat and some hope.
For the warmer time.
Warmer times aren't here just yet. Tomorrow night, the temperature's dropping to -20. Some people in Montreal won't have their power back for 2 more days. People in the Triangle of Darkness face another week or more. The second week without power. We're headed for the deep freeze. Time to go door to door to make sure no one freezes to death.
Montreal has the look these days of a city under siege. Dozens of businesses and offices shut tight for the second straight day as power to the city is rationed. And as temperatures plunged to -20, a major operation was underway to convince people without power to leave their homes. The provincial police, the RCMP, the Army may even evict those who could be in danger and refuse to leave on their own.
There are jurisprudence that there are common law principles which allow police forces to force someone to leave his home if his life is put at risk.
More than 1.5 million people are still without power. Downtown Montreal is still closed. The worst may be over, but there's a lot of work to do, and cold weather is the new enemy.
Starting yesterday, we've had the first 4 cases of people stealing generators.
To make sure no more generators disappear, and to keep people from freezing, the Army gets police powers.
They will have the right to arrest, and some are physically in good shape, so they can shake them up a bit if they don't want to obey the law.
In Granby, Corporal Ronald Jean and Gunner Isabelle Michael patrol the streets. They'll be out here for 3 hours. With the wind, it's minus 36 degrees.
Honestly, it's a little bit cold tonight. But look, I'm very, I got a lot of stuff on me, like a little bear.
They're looking for looters, anyone who shouldn't be out at 4 in the morning. Every noise is checked out. This one is a false alarm.
It's probably from the roof, the snow or the ice just bumps it, or it's not very, it's nothing.
The shift is long, uneventful. After 2.5 hours, they call it quits. It's too cold to finish.
The soldiers are hitting the streets, making sure no one is forgotten. Everyone is safe. The soldiers aren't forcing people from their homes, but they are questioning them. Making sure they aren't living under dangerous conditions. And the soldiers are breaking the bad news to them. If they are staying home, they should know power won't be back on here anytime soon.
To help tide people over, the government's starting to hand out checks. It's welcome relief for people with no lights and getting short of cash.
Hydro-Quebec compiled a list of customers in 141 towns and cities who won't get their power back for another week or more. Each person will get $70 in compensation to help warm them up during this January blackout. I haven't worked for more than a week, he says. It's going to help me buy some things I need.
As night falls, the temperature drops. Wind chills tonight will hit minus 30. The coldest since this crisis began more than a week ago.
We've got good street lighting.
Yep, it's almost 100%.
This is good because this area was pretty much blacked out.
Here on the South Shore, hundreds of thousands of people will stay in the dark for 2 more weeks.
It is completely black. You obviously can, just by seeing this, can understand why there's no power.
In Montreal, most people will have electricity in a day or two, but downtown won't get back to normal for a while. At least 20 deaths are blamed on the storm, and there is hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage.
The worst of the crisis is behind us because we really feared the worst. At the end of the day, on last Thursday, we really thought that we might leave Montreal, that might have a total blackout in the Montreal area. And this was something like a disaster. So we're very, I would say, lucky in a way because it was only one line. The line was watched by all people the whole night, only one line subsisting. And so when it was able to restore more than this line, of course, we were quite relieved. So really, it was a very, very close call.
By the 9th day, the power was starting to come back on again. Downtown Montreal was back in business, although on reduced hours. Most of the schools were still closed, and they'd stay that way for several days. But for most people, the worst was over. Still, thousands and thousands of people had no electricity at home. For some of them, it would be a few more days. Others would have to wait weeks before their lights would come back on again.
Just go on through, okay? Don't forget the kindling.
At night here, people can see the lights over the island of Montreal. It seems very, very far away.
I think a lot of us feel that perhaps we've been forgotten. Hudson is off the island. It's not part of Ontario. It's sort of a little teeny town in the middle of way off there. And we listen to the radio all day long, and there's hardly ever any mention of Hudson.
There has to be a grader.
The Hudson shelter is full of elderly people forced to flee their homes.
I had 3 people bringing me wood, but I was burning up faster than they could bring the wood in.
Walsh is 83 years old. His neighbors convinced him to leave home after 7 nights. Even the children in Hudson are feeling the stress.
I don't know when we're gonna power, but I hope it's soon. So we aren't having too much fun at all now.
For many people on the South Shore, it wouldn't be soon. They were going to spend many more nights in the shelters, and life was getting monotonous.
It gets pretty boring after a while. There's not much to do.
Boring. It is very boring.
Let me see. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9.
We're at the shelter in St. Bruno, the local high school. It's been home for Margarita Bree and her 6 children for the past 9 days and counting.
This is reality. This is my life. I'm not in my home. I'm not cooking meals for the children. I'm not supervising the homework. I'm here.
We're having another game because I'll have a game with you.
Like everyone else here, Susan Dick and her family are fast becoming skilled board game players.
75.
And they've played enough bingo to last a lifetime.
We're just doing something to break the monotony of just sitting around and doing nothing. Mostly for the women, it's the same thing. It's sort of like, in a way, a housekeeping on a bigger scale. We still volunteer to wash the tables and to do any of the dishes. Okay, we don't have the big beds to make, but you keep the area that you're sleeping in clean and tidy. And we look after the children.
We try and take care of each other as much as possible, but then I think it comes to a point when you just don't want to know. You like to go and hide. There's a certain loss of sort of dignity and pride, and you don't want to look yourself in the mirror.
There's a mind-numbing sameness to it all.
And sometimes when I'm really bored, I just twiddle my thumbs like this.
The Bree family will be staying here through the weekend and possibly beyond.
People living in the shelters are worried about their homes. For the most part, people didn't try to take advantage of others' hardships during the crisis. The patrols by the Army and the police helped, but there are always some exceptions.
I came through the window. The latch is broken off here. The whole house was ransacked. The drawers were pulled out. All the cupboard was emptied of the clothes. All of my jewelry, CDs. We were married recently. A lot of the wedding gifts, the silverware, things like that.
And they were nice enough to leave us a quarter, I guess, to make a phone call. So that's basically it.
It's disgusting. It's the last thing you need, really. I mean,
this is the reason many people didn't want to leave their homes over the past week. They were afraid of looting.
Yeah, it's shocking. You know, when everyone's in the same boat, you don't expect people to take advantage of it, but obviously somebody did.
Another terrible effect of the storm was what it did to businesses, especially farms. Most farmers did their best with the generators they had, but these generators were never built to run for days on end. Often they broke down, and the results could be deadly.
On this farm in L'Ange Gardien, dozens of baby pigs are slowly dying. More die every hour. The generator broke down here for just 8 hours.
It means that I don't know if we'll still be here next year.
300 pigs died on this farm in Roxton Pond yesterday. A farm generator broke, and with no ventilation, the temperature inside their barn reached 100 degrees. They died in the heat. Here on the Hamel farm in Roxton Pond, there are no lights, no water, no telephone, and no hope of getting the electricity restored for at least another 9 days. Denis Hamel, like many other Quebec farmers, is exhausted. He's been skipping meals and sleeping a maximum of 2 to 3 hours a night. I'll last as long as my generator does. It's not me that'll decide how long this farm stays going. It's my generator mechanic. The last time, Hamel took his generator to St. Hyacinth for repair. There were 150 other generators already there, also waiting to be repaired.
While farmers and others struggled to stay afloat, electric utility workers from across North America, the Army, and just about anyone who could lend a hand was trying to get the lights back on and clean up the mess. One of the first things to do was to get rid of the tons of ice. And there were some unique ways of doing it, like the team of police sharpshooters getting the ice off a communications antenna. And more signs things were getting back to normal. Schools started reopening.
Did you enjoy your extended Christmas holiday? Yes. You did? Yes. You enjoyed being home without power? Yes.
And everyone had a special story to tell about his or her extra long vacation.
I was at my grandma's the whole time, and they had power because they're in between the fire station and the hospital. And so they're like in
so they had power.
We only lost power for like 12 hours, so we were kind of lucky because we had power the whole time.
Carrie.
It was different. I lost power for 10 days, but I had an oven stove, and my grandparents, they came over.
You have an oven stove? Yeah, what's an oven stove?
I mean a wood stove.
A wood stove.
Well, since the power went out in the fridge, some of our things went bad, but we're still okay, and my mom now is like going in for groceries today.
Okay, so we're just going to have a nice, relaxing day talking about our 2 weeks at home.
Oh, Mom,
Just as most people thought the blackout was part of the past, it seemed to be starting again. A power line that up to now had survived the ice storm finally gave out, plunging much of the east end of Montreal into darkness.
I'm fed up, I'm sick of it. I want to come home, have lunch, have power, have a life.
All the traffic lights were out downtown, cars lined up for blocks. And for the second time in just 2 weeks, the metro system was knocked out. 113,000 homes and businesses now without power, and frustrated Montrealers wondering when it would all end.
I don't know what's going on. I want to know, and nobody knows. Try to ask some policemen or some security in the metro, and nobody knows for how long that's going to stay there.
Okay, présentement, nous essayons de nous placer.
For 3 weeks, hydro crews had tried just about everything to get the power back on. But they hadn't tried this.
Oui, c'est très délicat, c'est très dangereux.
A delicate operation to de-ice the line. The strategy? A crew hovering in an armed forces helicopter, dropping logs on the line to knock the ice off.
Okay, overshooting. Overshoot au maximum, là. Au maximum, okay.
Unconventional, unprecedented, but it worked. A vivid reminder of just how fragile Quebec's multi-billion-dollar power grid really is.
Le prochain pylône. Si on continuerait notre orbite, là, pour faire un race.
It would take about another 3 weeks for the power to come back on for just about everyone. Still, what did we learn? Well, Mother Nature reminded us that she can still wreak havoc with our high-tech modern way of life with almost no warning in a way we almost never expected. We also learned that here in Quebec, more people heat with electricity than in just about any other part of the world. But what we should really remember is how much we depended on our friends and our neighbors, on strangers from nearby and from far away, and how much we can help each other when the need is there. And when you bought this video, you too helped people recover from the great ice storm of 1998. Thank you.
Here we go.
It's good.
Give me the walker. Which side do you take your walker at?
I take your eyes.
Okay. On s'attend?
Excuse-moi. Oh, yes. The spoons?
On vous donne la chaleur, là, OK? OK. Here we go.